Good day, YouTubers. Welcome back to my channel. Time for a spot of royalty. Today we want to talk about Thomas Markle's $1 million lottery win. Is it an inside job? Okay, because there's a suggestion, Thomas Markle, he was working at a movie studio. He was making big bank. In the 80s, he was making 200 grand, which was a lot of money. There was a lottery through his studio, through his movie studio. And he ended up winning that lottery. And the word is that Doria basically encouraged him to play it through the back door, and work his connections, because he was a very high, he's on the production side, but he was very high up, making a very good salary. He's an award-winning lighting designer. So he really had some strong connections. And so the word is that she got him to work those connections and kind of cheat on this lottery. So I want to take a look at that. This is Megan and Thomas. Megan began living with Thomas when she was 11 years old. Okay, so she lived with Thomas from the age of 11 years old until college, and then he sent her to college, full fare. He paid for all of it. This is him coming to visit her. He's from California. She was in, I'm not sure where she was. She was in a colder place. He bought all of these jackets and everything. He flew up there. He spent a lot of money just to spend some time with his daughter, and they're at a football game. This is the very famous, the letter where Megan is telling her side, how he's hurt her, all these lies he's telling about her, and it's along the lines of Meghan Markle escaping the crown. She's the victim. He was mean to her. He's telling lies about her. It doesn't really make sense. The narrative that Meghan is preaching about how she's the victim and how her father was so mean to her, it just doesn't make sense. And this of course is creating problems for Meghan's public relations team, because nobody believes that Thomas was nasty to Meghan. He seems actually like a really good father, very generous, very loving, overlooks all of her faults, and just wants a relationship with his grandson. So we got the scapegoat, the coffin, and Mercury. We're going to just keep shuffling. Okay, so let's take a look at Doria and Thomas. Was Thomas Markle's lottery win an inside job? And I want to look at them individually, because the story is that Doria encouraged him to do this. I want to know how much Doria was involved. And then later, Doria testified in court. I think Thomas lost his job over this, and he was making big bank. In the 80s, he's making 200 grand a year, which is probably like 500 grand a year, now. And then she went, and she was still married to him, and she testified against him in court. So betrayal, ruthlessness, ruthlessness and betrayal. I want to see if Doria was involved. I want to see if there was cheating and underhandedness. That's the kind of things I want to see. So let's take a look at Doria. Doria. Oh my. Well, twos are connection. Thomas. Four diamonds is a great money card. All right, so Doria and Thomas. I want to see if she's connected to this nefarious lottery win. I want to see if there is any funny business indicated. So is Doria connected? Well, she's very closely connected. Lovers, getting right up in there. Diamond ring, very connected. 12 and 4, 16, 4 spades. Okay, coffin. So secretly behind the scenes, she's driving the actions. She's got the long-term plan. She's like, yeah, let's do this. So I actually think that she is the mastermind behind this. And Snake is very Snake is the best long-term planning card. Snake is very vengeful. Snake, Snake waits and strikes. Snake in the Garden of Eden. This is an evil card, secretly evil behind. She's the mastermind. She's the mastermind behind all this. Okay, and often we see there's questions of whether Meghan is manipulating Harry. Well, this is kind of like Doria is calling the shots behind the scenes, manipulating her husband, Thomas. What's going on with Thomas? Cornerstone, decisions, straight razor, single act, 9, 10, 3 diamonds. 3 diamonds is Trinity, everyone working together. So he was working with Doria to get this money, and Crossroads can be speaking with a forked tongue, taking the left-hand path. Yeah, he did it, but he was manipulated by Doria. Doria did this, and she used Thomas as her puppet. He's kind of straightforward here. She's getting all the deception cards. What's underneath? Big change and success. 1. Ace of Diamonds. Sun is a great success card. This is the beginning of success. Diamonds are money. So a nice big windfall, big change for them. They got $1 million out of it, and 700,000 after taxes. Couple of extra cards, Coffin and Jacob's Ladder. 9, 3 hearts, a sweet win that changed their path forward, but it's tainted. It's kind of tainted money. So I do think there was something nefarious about it. I think Doria was the mastermind behind it. I think Thomas was more like she was pulling the strings on Thomas, and Thomas did what was necessary to get it done because he's the one with the pull, but Doria was behind the scenes manipulating. So I do think there's some funny business about it because there was a lawsuit pressed about this stating that there was funny business. Doria testified against him, which is really weird. Okay, let's look at now Doria's father, Alvin Ragland. Doria's living in a very nice house, probably worth over $1 million. She was a social worker and a yoga teacher, not, making 40 grand a year. In California, that's not a lot of money. And her father was letting her live with her. And maybe after prison, we're going to take a look at that. And during this time that Doria is living in Alvin Ragland's house, he goes and walks the dog, and he trips and falls. That's the story, and he dies. So there's multiple contusions on his head. He's actually slim and in good shape. He's not having a lot of medical problems. He's a dancer. He's regularly dancing. He's very social. He's not depressed. And it's a suspicious death. Let's look at Doria and Alvin, her father. Okay, and on top of that, in the will, Alvin is giving Doria and her brother the house that Doria is living in. The brother apparently signed away his rights. He got no part of this very valuable house. He got nothing. And Doria is just living in that house. So that's more funny business. Okay, so here Doria is planning and sneaking around. Was she involved was there a suspicious death? Was Alvin Ragland murdered? Let's take a look at Doria and Alvin. Let's just kind of see what's going on here. Doria. Alvin, her father. All right, let's see what we've got. Doria. Is there anything suspicious about Alvin's death? Was she involved? Scourge, a lot of conflict, full stop, 12, 3 spades. A lot of conflict in the relationship, extremely negative. Butterfly, transformation from conflict and full stop. Transformation, conflict, and full stop. Underneath we have cup overflowing and finger of God. Outside, brought something in. Five hearts reacting to the circumstances, bringing something in, very emotional. Cup overflowing can be just, you know, it's getting too emotional. The fighting is too much and it just pops off. You know, that's 10 hearts. And she did something about it. What's going on here? Olive tree, broken chalice, cross. Cross is permanent family card, deeply rooted family, 8 and 7, 15, 4 clubs, 4-leaf clover. So the relationship between them was very bad, full of conflict. So let's paint the picture. Alvin, her father, her elderly father, is living in this nice house, very generously has Doria, and it's nothing but conflict. He is providing for her, and it's awful with her. She is just, and there's no love here. It's all conflict, and it's really bad, the relationship. And he's just like, you know, he's really taking care of her because he's feeling responsible for his 40-year-old daughter who's back at home. And maybe she's older than 40 years old at this point. Maybe she's closer to 50 years old at this point. So think about that. Your 50-year-old daughter, you know, she's been divorced. She's probably been to jail. And we're about to look at the jail part. And now she's living in your house and she's just, oh, it's awful. The relationship is terrible. Just constant conflict. They're silent treatment, conflict, not talking to each other. He's just like, ugh, you just live over there in that part of the house, in that part of my expensive, beautiful house. And I'm feeding her, she's feeding her, he's feeding her. And so she, the finger of God reaches down and changes things. So the story is, she hired somebody. He went out for a walk and she hired somebody and they changed the circumstance, you know, because of the emotions. So there is evidence that there was nefarious, funny business that went on, because how does someone trip and fall? The man is healthy. He apparently tripped while he was walking the dog, and then he showed up dead. And we see pictures of Doria walking her dogs. All right. So Megan lived with her father, Thomas, from the age of 11 years old. He also watched her on the set of Married with Children. She would come every day after school and be minded on the set of Married with Children. So there's a whole bunch of people there. He's doing his job. She's introduced to the movie business and all those movie people and the actors and such. And that's how she became inspired to become an actress. And lots of great connections for her. He's in the business. So she really followed in her father's shoes, not in her mother's shoes. So she should be, that suggests she's closer to her father, obviously. So did Doria go to jail for tax evasion? So here's the story. Doria gets full custody and child support and maintenance. Okay, Thomas bought Doria a travel agency, but it's entirely in his name. So she's making money because he's making big bucks. He was making $200,000 a year in the 80s, which is like $500,000 a year now. So during the divorce, Doria decides not to pay taxes because on top of getting all that money out of him and keeping the house, now she's going to send him to jail. Okay, that's how cold-hearted she wants to be because it's all in his name. So she doesn't pay taxes. So it turns out that Thomas had nothing at all to do with the business, and she was basically a sole proprietor, and he was not involved. And so Doria is sent to prison. Okay, possible 15 years, she gets 4 years. So the story is she spent 4 years in jail. So did Doria go to jail for tax evasion? Look at that. That's interesting. Okay, did Doria go to jail for tax evasion? Scapegoat is cast out. The scapegoat, the high priest, once a year, they pick a goat, they lay their hands on the head of the goat, put all the sins on the goat, and send the goat outside of the camp, outside of the community of people, to be isolated in the high tower, in a very crowded jail. 16 and 9, 25, 7 hearts. Yes, she definitely went to jail. She definitely spent time in jail. She definitely spent time isolated, cast out of the community of the people, and spent time in jail with the many poor souls there. Underneath, strength, mustard seed, hamster wheel, 21, 22, 6 diamonds, hand in hand, mustard seed, long trip, and stuck there. She was stuck there for a long time. I think, the story is 4 years. I think it may have been longer than 4 years. She may have gone to jail for longer than 4 years. She definitely went to jail. She may have gone to jail for longer than 4 years, because hamster wheel is a very long stretch. This is a trip across water. This is overseas travel. It's just very heavy. This is a very, very heavy card. Okay, so she was planted and rooted in a very, very heavy place among many people, many people. Okay, so I actually think she spent more than 4 years in jail. What is the evidence we have? Megan went to live with Thomas when she was 11, and she lived with him until she's 18. How long is that? That's 7 years. Okay, so I think Doria spent 7 years in jail. Golly gee willikers, that's a really long time. I think she spent more than 4 years in jail. So the story is 4 years in jail. Okay, so Thomas Markle allegedly suffered from alcoholism and drug abuse. He went through this terrible divorce. He never remarried. Okay, he was cured. After Doria, she was so mean to him that he's cured. He never remarried. Okay, and that's a good indicator right there of how bad the divorce is, because I'm sure everybody gets divorced now, and there's lots of people who are like, I'll never do that again. Thomas is one of those people. Okay, so did Thomas Markle suffer from alcoholism and drug abuse after his divorce, because it was just so traumatic? Let's take a look at that, because there were a lot of allegations of that by Doria. She was really mean to him. So did Thomas suffer from alcoholism and drug abuse? He, of course, denies it, because that's what people do. Well, there's the devil. Devil wants to show up. Okay, nowadays he doesn't touch alcohol. Okay, and he states that he doesn't touch alcohol. And that's also an indicator of somebody who had a problem. They just go cold turkey and they realize they can't touch it anymore. So they just can't touch alcohol, can't have anything to do with it. Can't shake hands with it, can't go to a bar, can't have one drink. Well, we do have the devil. The devil is the ultimate addiction card. Okay, the devil will enslave you and take over your life. 24 plus 9, 33. Yes, he definitely has some addiction problems. It ruled his life because of his relationships. Yeah, he definitely, underneath the surface now, he definitely had some severe addiction problems, and he got the devil, which is the worst card. So it really just kind of took over his life for a time. What's on top? We have what's on the surface. We have, and this is 38 diamonds. Very solid foundation. Everything is very solid, and he's in a good situation now. He's completely recovered. Okay, and here's a message. People can completely recover. He's completely recovered. He did suffer from alcohol and drug addiction, but he's now completely recovered. Everything is completely solid for him. He's very, very solid. He's not suffering from this problem at this point. Okay, so he did, because of the trauma, and he just couldn't deal with it. It took over his life for a while. So that is true, but he's not suffering from it now. There's no indication that he's suffering from it now. Okay, well, this is interesting. And I think we're painting a picture that Doria is really very, very ruthless, and she was manipulating Thomas like a puppet. We see Megan doing this to Harry. just very ruthless. It's the Meghan show. How does it make sense for Harry to live in California? It really makes absolutely no sense. Harry cannot live in California. It's purely and totally and entirely just about Meghan. And that just shows ruthlessness. That shows ruthlessness. Where did she learn that? She learned it from Doria, because Doria demonstrates just ruthlessness and uncaring. And then she was so mean to Thomas after he was her husband, very, very cruel to him. We're making connections here, and I think Meghan really learned from Doria, and Thomas is a pushover. He's just a soft little bear of a man, soft big bear of a man, and he's a teddy bear, and he's too nice. And he threatened to come every month and speak until they finally met, and he's not even doing that because he feels like it's too mean. So he needs to be a lot tougher and a lot meaner. Okay, Doria and Thomas, was there something funny about this lottery win? What's her involvement? Absolutely involved. She's the mastermind. She did all of the sneaky planning. Thomas, he provided the structure. He did it. It radically changed their life, but there is some funny business about it, and there was a lawsuit over it. But Doria is the mastermind, and then she turned around and testified against him in court, and she didn't have to testify against him. That's just cruelty. That's just really, really cruel. Okay, Doria and Alvin, is there anything funny about her father's death, and she's living in that house, and her brother, who's supposed to get half of it, got nothing? Terrible relationship between them. He's being so kind to her. Her father is, permanent relationship, deeply rooted, but the relationship just sucks. And what did she do? She called in a hit. She got someone from outside because of all of the raging emotions, and she had it taken care of, and now she's got the house. That's really ruthless. Okay, did Doria go to jail for tax evasion? And the story is 4 years. She definitely went to jail. She definitely went to jail, and I think it's longer than 4 years. Okay, Meghan lived with Thomas for 7 years, but she could have gotten out of jail, and her life is wrecked. She was away for 5 years, and then she's got nothing. Why would Meghan go live with her mother when she has nothing, and Thomas is a functional person? So maybe she did 5 years or 6 years. But Meghan just stayed with her father because it's less disruptive. It makes more sense. But she definitely went to prison. And I think it's more than 4 years. Did Thomas Markle struggle with alcohol and drug addiction? Yes, it took over his life. At a point in his life, it took over his life, and it was his best friend. Okay, that's what these cards are saying. Alcohol and drugs were Thomas's best friend, and they're nobody's friend. But right now, he's completely cleared. Everything is very solid, and the son, Thomas Markle, these things run in the family. You see the son, Thomas Markle, struggling with alcohol addiction, and he's now living with a relative, and he says, well, gosh, I would be homeless if not for this relative. So these things kind of run in the family. So I think this gives us a lot of insight into Doria and Meghan, because Meghan is Doria's daughter. That's how I see it. I'm Joseph Magi, author of Playing Card Divination, Fortune Telling, The Magi Method. Find the book worldwide on Amazon and Kindle and paperback versions. Find the full color card deck used here on Etsy/Magi Method. Many thanks to the generous people who have donated to buy me a cup of tea. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and comment.